야, 다. 내 가르소래. 만원. 죄지. 담보대 강기된지 와시에라 그 취. 제. 융천 봤음. 네 시와 찬으세.
가르쳐 융.
나 융천 봤습니다.
So the verse that we just said, the first one, I prostrate to the perfect being, the best of the teachers, is from root wisdom. It's a prayer of praise the Buddha from the point of view of emptiness and dependency. And the second stanza, which is from Abhisamaya Alankara, which I prostrate to the mother of Buddhas. So, from the point of view of the mother Prajna Paramita.
다디 제마들라 또베 차완 남사지 세디 아니 남들 그 체제 아니 가소리 님보다 님못 탐제지 인생그 또 차완 남사지 제그 방법 편조당 다잖아 가소리 피숨 소용원에 되바다 이들이 뭐가게 산점된 데라 방법 피숨 또바 피숨 틀에 편조숨 요건에 되바다 전에 진짜 탐하지 대인 말은.
The last stanza which says, I prostrate to the one who has eliminated the net of conceptualization. So this is a verse of praise which is taken from Dhammakirti's Pramanavartika, praising from the point of view of having attained the perfection of everything that which is to be that which is to be abandoned, the perfection of abandonments and cessation of whatever needs to be abandoned, and having actualized the perfection. So, what is to be abandoned primarily are the roots of all our afflictions, the grass of existence.
년도 10월 초나 꾸신이지 27세 강연 돌아 편바체나 남시 된tun으로 잡아가 강다 양다 때문에 투나 남북군대 나서 뒤숨바 년도 chan주선비 초제 세대기 단 네게 가르순 거래서나 년도 초남 세대라 단 네가수 알아서 가르서 그래 동아 중사기 시기에 가려야 되는 중화래에서나 당신 말을 받을 때는 당신 말을 받을 때는 아니 차와두지 그 동아지 풍보래 풍보대 주니 아니 풍보될 때는 다 때는 동아 중화 탐제 제가 나지 동아 탐제 아니 사전 예례지 풍보 지나면도 차와두지 그 동아 지나면도 된다위 동아들이 다 된다 이 풍보태단 자와시 마중 봐도 아니 동아래 마대봐 풍보대 대단 자대 풍보대 녀를 시와시 충나 아니 땐도 때와시 토고와 인장 년도 시와 초는 세가라 라니 지보 차원도시기 동아들이 마대대 아니 동아디 녀라 시위니 시 초아부 쪼데 냐라 좋아 무슨 년데 단디 와서 년데 슈라 라자에 된 거래 라니 차와도 그 동아 날때 동아 용사대 간데 풍 중화 인장 아니 풍보디 동아 녀와 시와지 마중화 인장 마중 봐도 아니 대화 인장 시와
And the second stanza taken from the jewel ornament of clear realizations, Abhisamaya Alankara, within which it says, I prostrate to the mother of the Buddhas and the groups of hearers, bodhisattvas who through the knowledge of all lead to complete peace, hearers pacification calls those helping migrators to achieve the aims of the world, and through possession of which the subduers set forth the varieties having all aspects. So here, where you have this line, who through knowledge of all lead to complete peace, heroes seeking pacification. So what is being stated here is the foundation or the grounds of all our suffering. The foundation for it is the ignorance, grasping at true existence, as self-existence. And so because of this, then you have what is known as the suffering of our pervasive conditioning. These aggregates that exist in the nature of suffering. And because of these aggregates, then we have all the types of things, from aging, sickness, and death, because of these contaminated aggregates. And so until we can sort of separate ourselves from this type of suffering, the suffering of pervasive conditioning, then for as long as we are from this, then we are never free from the suffering nature of existence. So here, when we talk about seeking pacification, seeking pacification is the pacifying of these aggregates, these aggregates. Because as long as one cannot pacify these aggregates, then one can never realize the everlasting, peerless happiness. And so when here, as heroes seeking pacification, then oneself, wishing to achieve for oneself the pacification of pervasive condition. So here who is specifically mentioned is the hearers, and what is also to be understood indirectly is that this also includes the solitary realizers, the pratyakas as well. So when we talk about who through knowledge of all lead to complete peace, seeking pacification is the pacification of these aggregates, which is the key to attaining the everlasting happiness.
Oh yeah, that digasu tengo are chidang kasore choba josaki shide are ani chawan duwa dujeki dunga nyora shewa nyora shibi ani nishi tapa topjeki ani tapdela kasore 시시 자기다기 좀 방무슨 또 이시에서 끝이 요탑 탑티제 내라로 파파 탑디 시시 시가사다기 좀 방무슨 또 이시
시카사
가사기다기 좀 해봐 무슨 또 이시 라와 아니 대녀랑 파파디 탑 시시 시가사기다기 좀 해봐 무슨 또 이시 대 아니 탑지 심비고네 권발라 때네 레고 가르토 그래서나 다 미드비 동아 사자니레지 풍부 차와두지 그 동아디 녀라 시위 니시 탈바데 제부지 토거래 인당 때탑 제우심비고네 때사데 탑시시 될 거래.
So when we talk about what is the basis to be pacified, when we talk about the complete pacification of the suffering of the pervasive conditioning, so how is this attained? And when this is attained, what it refers to is the result of liberation. How the means by which it is attained is, what is known as the knowledge of the basis, which is, the exalted that directly realizes the selflessness of a person. So this is the method, and on the basis of meditating this exalted wisdom directly realizing the selflessness of a person, then through this meditation, the result which is attained is the pacification of the suffering of the pervasive conditioning, for which one has no desire at all. And when this is pacified, then the result that which is actualized is the liberation. So you have the basis, the method, and the result.
가르래서 코아타다 동아지 라신도 통네 아니 텔라 미데베 로제리 아니 코이 동아녀라 시위 니시토지게 탑 아니 곰니 아니 타제부 차와도 지그 동아녀라 다 교증가라 데려와.
So this line denotes specifically the path and practice of an individual of a middle capable being's path. The trainees on such a path, then what they see is the samsaric existence for which they have absolutely no desire, no wish for, and so seek completely to achieve the complete path of the suffering samsaric existence, and by employing the method, then actualize the result of the complete pacification of the suffering of pervasive conditioning.
다 되게 쉬우라 가르된 거 아래에서나 아니 내송기 동아 빛나주 삼네 아니 내송기 동아라 미데베 로제리 아니 내송기 동아냐 제제디 좀 메기위래 동아냐라 시위니 시대 가슴 메기위래 녀라 시와 시에게 탑대라 가르래서나 공부 추좀 오 내송기 동아 녀라 시와기 아미 댄상 아니 소르 대비 통마 댄상 소르 대비 운도 삼미 댄상 톱지기 주 가르래서 아니 주를 남바답에 시수만 미게 접은 거 주를 냠수 라니 라 진소 진발라 소위 주름 대다기 아니 양행기 심비권에 아니 주름 그냥행 그 심바다 뭐람 그 참자와라 소위 권에 아니 주를 남바답 톱지 잠바 아니 가서 그동안 여러 시위 니시 온디 함이 댄산데 토거야 이 말에 어디 조충기 가기 가서 가서 그동안 여러 시네 온도 함이 공반 타반 되기 체도 주름성해야 돼 되된 거 아래 디슈라.
And this line also implicitly also denotes the lack of rebirth in lower states of existence in the three lower realms. And what generates rebirth in the three lower realms are all our karmic actions. And so from this same line also denotes the wish to pacify, totally pacify these types of 10 non-virtuous actions, and to live by, live by the ethics through which then one may attain higher rebirth as human beings and as devas, as celestial beings. So this line also denotes the path and practice, that which is common to an individual of the small scope, which is to live by the ethics, abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions, undertaking the practices of generosity, and as well as making pure or stainless forms of prayers, and through such then securing for oneself the birth as human beings, as deva beings.
Oh yeah. 특히 니와 되게 놀라 편 람신이지 직된 tundu zaba kang se kana 창생 파바 아니 탑된 창생 파바디 다 창 개그와데 가르 치도 잡아 셈yen이 된도 아니 자주기 셈 개바 인상 아니 좋아 주 아니 두자리 전숨 년 랑자지리 전 특진지리 전숨 ten주고와 인상세 온돌라 펜바 체는 지를 좋아 지당 하바도 두자리 전숨부 테라 펜바 돌라 펜바 체바 체남 다 돌라 펜바 체경기 대창 차선 파바 대다기 돌라 펜바 체경기 탑데 가르레 예잖아 신이 지지된 돈을 잡아강스 람시바스 람시바스 람데라 년도지 람 특진지 람 전에 람수요 이 말이야. 그와 예산 제사 자주 선바 대다기양 년도당 랑자기 람지 나네 보 시대 되니기 어때 마도바 대마도바 파망 아니 자사 자주 선바기 라고 말해. 년도라고. 군장 가르레에서나 누자 년도지 리전당 랑제지 리전 대다 예수 수수와라 제수도 담바 안에 대다게 남지를 봐 냠수 렘비 람 때네 대다 제수 송거와 인상 강 땡주기 바데 랑게 마시나 안에 현 제수가 코랑 요 말이 참만 남지 가서 탑 대체반에 가와인 랑라 안에 파된 그 람디 미시나 아니 현라 때는 편도잖아요 요 말이 탑중 대주 고지와 대체반에 가와있어 그와 탑중 대주 고주바 강탑라 때에 마시나 아니 현라 때는 현라 편도요 말이 있을 거래 그와
송데 khneres
남지 참만 남지
So, and then the next line which says, who through the knowledge of paths cause those helping migrators to achieve the aims of the world. This denotes the basis, or the basic practitioner of the that is of the Buddha type, who employ the method of bodhicitta, generating bodhicitta in order to benefit not only migrators in general, but specifically these types of individuals, those that are type of the heroes lineage, those that are type of the realizers lineage, and those that are of the type of the Mahayana lineage. So not only benefiting the beings of the six realms in general, but specifically benefiting as well of these three types of lineages. So in order to benefit them, then the method by which they benefit these migrators is through the knowledge of the path. By knowing the path, and the path that should be known, the knowledge of the path should be the knowledge of the path of the hero's path, the knowledge of the solitary realizer's path, and as well as the knowledge of the Mahayana path. So that is what is being referred to as who through the knowledge of the paths can cause those migrators to achieve of the world. So the bodhisattvas must have the knowledge of the paths of the hero as well as the solitary realizers, and they also almost have to train in these paths, excluding the point of seeking one's own individual peace and happiness. Excluding this point, the exclusion of this point of seeking one's own individual peace and happiness, with the exclusion of this point, then almost the entire path of the hearers and solitary realizers is something that even bodhisattvas need to train in. And in order to care for migrators of the hearers type, migrators of the solitary realizers type, then bodhisattvas need to know, need to have the knowledge of the graduated stages of the path. So without them having that knowledge, then there is no way that one can care for migrators of the hearers, solitary realizers lineage, as it is stated very specifically in Pramanavartika, that without oneself having the knowledge of the way in which to benefit, then without that knowledge one cannot be an effective source of benefit. One cannot benefit others without having the proper knowledge, the way in which to benefit.
Oh yeah, 다 chanchu sempa ane 가서 년도이당 라자 제수 송은이 송고와 예자 라고와데 너희 가서양 아니라서 chanchu sempa 남진이 년도지 라무 강인 받아 라산제지 라무 강인 받아 산제지 라무 강인 봐 오람대다 탐제 개발의 자신 람대다 탐제 시와 차오 대다게 람지 차와양 차라 전이 다 개돈 받아 진주 가서 도스와인 바래 인자 chanchu sempa 기 라저 chanchu sempa 년도지 바 스타지 시와 나신지 년도기 chanchu 주제기 아니 조 셰럽기 시카사가다 무슨 또 이시 나 강자라 세가나 아니 치다 막에 다 주다 공업이 쳐봐자요 아래 다디 파진 카둘라 세가나 아니 순진 재생기 동바 추지다메라바 무슨 또 이시 산제지 남세가나 아니 돈이 무슨 또 이시 어가 다 시와 치고래 대단한 줄 치고래 란주라 용수 조월 치고래 전에
So it is stated very specifically in the sutras that that bodhisattvas need to train in the path, need to train in the path of the hearers and the solitary realizers. They need to generate the path in their mind. They need to have the knowledge of those paths, and they actively engaged in those paths, the hearer's path, the solitary realizer's path, and what is known as the Buddha's path. So, in the case of the hearer's path, then in order for bodhisattvas to individuals of the hearers type, then for them then they must have already, bodhisattva needs to have generated that path in their mind, the knowledge of that path, be engaged in that path, and it is through that they can benefit migrators of the hearers type, and how to make it possible for individuals of the hearers type to attain their state of enlightenment, which is through realizing, generating that exalted wisdom of directly realizing the selflessness of a person. And then, of course, in order to benefit those that are of the solitary realizers lineage, then you would say, in order for those individuals to attain their enlightenment, then they need to generate that wisdom, realizing the selflessness of phenomena, or the what is the apprehended object and the apprehending consciousness being empty of other substance, realizing the emptiness of that, which is which is or in other words, the substance of phenomena, which is the path by which those of the solid type then need to generate as a way to secure their enlightenment. And then for those that are of the Buddha's path, then their realization, the realization of directly realizing emptiness in order to actualize their enlightenment. So therefore, for a bodhisattva, then they need to have generated all these paths and have the complete knowledge of these paths in order to be of benefit to individuals of these three types.
Oh yeah, that dig 가설에서나 땡디 자선 파바체 땡 자선 파바기 아니 자선 파바기 누자데라 리젠숨 연대지르자 라자지르자 트지르젠숨 뒤된 루베데 칸데 두고레스 된 가레레스나 다 연대지 차와 차와도 저거 동안 녀와시비 니실라티에 제 잔주선바데게 누자리젠숨지 된 루베데 탑 가레라 두고 아래에서나 되네 탑 람시에가 오 탑 람시라 때네 누자리젠숨지 된 루바데.
So, with this second line, then, who through the knowledge of paths cause those migrators to achieve the aims of the world, then refers specifically to an individual who is of the Arya Bodhisattva type, and whose aim is to benefit whose aim is to benefit the individuals of these three types. The hearers type, the solitary realizers type, and the Mahayana type. And how does a bodhisattva then fulfill the benefit of these three types? Is through the method of the knowledge of the path. For example, then to benefit those who are of the type of the hearers lineage, then what the hearers aim to is the complete pacification of the suffering of pervasive conditioning. So it is through employing the method of the knowledge of the path then these bodhisattvas are able to benefit in these three types.
Oh yeah, that 가설에 년도당 란자 가서 자선 파바 대답이 아니 가설에 시와 초주당 두자리젠숨지 된 루고와라 아니 시와 초주 시어거와다 두자리젠숨지 된 루수 시어거와 인장 다 어데 강당 양다 덴베 투나 남바 군대 디송바 세가라 땡 산제 파바 땡 산제 파바기 아니 누자리젠 숨라 랑랑기 아니 누와다 팀비 총고 qo야에 탑 칸데지 고그래서나 탑 남제라 때네 자 탑 남제라 때네 아니 누자리젠 숨라 총고 qo데 냐랑 되달라 아니 시와 차와 두제기 동안 예와 시위 인식 아니 초록이 탑 가로 공개 자세 장주 선바 대달라 두자리젠 숨지 튼 룹수데 아니 탐남제라 때네 산제 그 총고 꼬르에 총고 꼬들이 내 산제 파바 탐남제라 때네 두자 대다기 랑랑게 감다 삼바 매와 치다와 시도 체니 아니 총고 꼬라 때네 두자 대다 그냥 술랑네 아니 랑기 탑지 대부 차와도 저 그동안에와 시비 니시 아니 누가 쳐봤다 자주선 받아다 그 도저리 제르자 숨지 텐주에 두심바래 아
So we can say that for these individuals of the three types, the hearers, solitary realizers, and Arya Bodhisattvas, in seeking peace, then or in seeking pacification, then they need to know how to seek that state of peace. And as for the Arya Bodhisattvas, then in benefiting sentient beings, in benefiting sentient beings of these three types, then they need to have that knowledge of how to fulfill that benefit for those of these three types. And so then, as we look at the last line, which says, and through possession of which the subduers set forth the varieties having all aspects. So this line here then refers to Arya Buddhas, and the Arya Buddhas, who do they, what they seek to subdue are also the individuals of these three types, and how do Arya Buddhas benefit of these three types, three lineages, is through the method of their omniscient mind, the all-knowing omniscient mind, employing the method of their all-knowing omniscient mind. And how do they benefit these three times is through turning the wheel of Dharma in accordance with the interest, mental disposition and aspirations of the individuals of the three times. Then they turn the wheel of Dharma. The activity of the turning of the wheel of Dharma is the result. So, an Arya Buddha, through employing the method of the omniscient mind, then how do they benefit hearers and solitary realizers, who are seeking pacification, who are seeking peace? Is by showing them the Dharma, by turning the wheel of Dharma that enables them to pacify the suffering of pervasive conditioning, and thereby achieve the that by undertaking the practices as set forth in those turning of the wheel of Dharma, then actualizing the result of that pacification. And then benefiting bodhisattvas by turning the wheel of Dharma in accordance with the actions, mental disposition or mind level of the bodhisattvas, and individuals practicing what has been taught. In these turning of the wheel of Dharma, they come to actualize that state of complete pacification. So in this way, then you have the enabling of the bodhisattvas also to benefit individuals of the three types as well.
Oh yeah, that in the Maranzo Inaya, that Karsore, Dujari Chansom turn to a Cheba La, and it turned to Tadashua Nasi Shiokoa. Oh, Chembasum Zegana Shishe, Lamshe, Namje Sumbotegi, and it that Sumbotegi turned to a Jubanashi, Chanita, Maranzo, and Teraki, Chembasumbo, Angela, Gibi Gone. And do Jerry Jason turn to say in the Anza, that tender way, the castle, Jeva Chebala, Shevala, Togo, in the that aren't there, and the castle, Chiduja, that one Nashi, Chenny, castle, with some Yukuna Landi, and it Chimche sang about it, the Kunoj Mass at Damni. That can't say she had attended that Yulama. Bottom Shua in Zang. Anita, Jim Dende, Doy Gasso, Tommy Gigi Geloni, Danger Tiny, Turnlaka, Doding a time with the number Mambota to Che. Casa, the Derry but very but then on the Shunjing Mandu Centros, T. Rupa Drubani, Sally Pona Moshicha, Telangaji Tony, Loni Sampo Giovanni, Loni Jadangaji to Tushin, how you draw Sanigala. And Sasunya Papa Tommy, and Jim Dendegi, Doyaka Danny. me chechawe kelonde jomde de nyangalen dana lokuja me chechawe ongres ra tome checha keloni wo tendrame tenje tinni tela ke tenje kasa tenje ku tela ke ba 안 도전 의견 참여된 넘버 망보라도 체세가라 전된 대지 돌아 안에 장대당 의견이 아니 또이나 라 도대 장대의 넘버 망보라 계시 아니 가서 다들 숨어가지 아니 대리바 주반에 산에 퍼냐 못이차 대랑아지 툰 상보께와 주로세가나 아니 가서를 지진 참배 주발라 때네 아니 가서를 원에 상보께 와서 태산 고순지写了 개와 주와 대제라 아니 가서를 어도 아니 체디네 시대 하유들 아니 로야 되기 다 론담바 나신 전에 다 토면에 규디 규나바 두성 거래
So and part as well, we as individuals, in order to be of a source of benefit to these individuals of three different lineages, then for us also, then we need to have the knowledge, be endowed with the knowledge, generate the knowledge in order to benefit the individuals of the three times, have the knowledge of the basis, have the knowledge of the path, and have the omniscient mind. It is through these that we as individuals can be of benefit to others of these three types of lineages. And in order to have these knowledge of the basis, path, and the omniscient, in the all-knowing omniscient mind, to have this, then to have any of these knowledge, then we need to be able to listen. For all of this, first and foremost, then we have to hear about it, listen. Have the exposure, or listen to these teachings. On the basis of these, then on the basis of this, then we have the opportunity to have the knowledge from knowledge of the basis to the path to omniscient knowledge. So accordingly, then in order to listen to these teachings, then to generate the proper motivation of the bodhicitta, with the wish to benefit others, that I'm going to listen to these minor. Specifically here, the Uttaratantra teachings, the teachings on the Sublime Continuum, and stated in the sutra, then Sangha, the coming of Asanga was told by the Buddha himself in the sutras, in which he states saying that 900 years after the passing, after the great parinirvana of Buddha, then there will come a fully ordained monk by the name of Asanga, and who will be extremely learned in the meaning of all the scriptures and commentary, who be to distinguish what are the definitive sutras, what are the interpretive sutras in distinguishing them, then being extremely skilled and so forth. And like this, it talks about how Asanga generates the goodness of the mind of bodhicitta and the wisdom of his extensive course of listening, understanding, and meditation, and due course then goes to the land of the devas.
Oh yeah, then that Tom is long time by Nancy Channel, and it jumped in the young island there is Jesu, and it teaching it them by Yam Mapa Channel, which by Yamni. And it him and get there with them Tambala and they watch up to buy chair so. And it teaching it them by Yam Shidun Yam by Yanzang, and it Castle Tomegi, and a yum, and a castle yum. 수준 사무 인바에서 transform 수준 사무 아니 teaching 그 tempa nyambala masoba 아니 teaching 이 tempa nyam masoba ni rangone 아니 teaching 그 tempa nyamba sewa 그 niwa meba 아니 땜바 냠바 쇠기 치도 아니 그래 야리단 뒤와래 아니 가소래 아니 tom에 충하다 잠시리단 뒤와래 인이 충니 아니 중찬이 아니 야 중세 야 공로 런비가라 아니 말라 아니 가소래 내 차와카레레 있을까나 파이 차와카레레 있을까나 파이 저랑 아니 파이 자식 제가 많이 아니 좀 내내 그때 뭐 냠바 라서바 그치도 제와인 아니 채랑 아랍도 아니 가서라 흉라 장바당 라와서 냠수 랭고래 전에 아니 다 잡지 흉도 뒤뒤셔야 되는 지 말에 그럼
So in those years after the passing away of the Buddha, then there was a time frame when the minor teachings of Buddha was in a very degenerated state, and the Hinayana teachings of Buddha was very, very prevalent in the sense that you had the existence of these 18 sub-schools, Hinayana sub-schools. During those conditions of the extreme degeneration of the Mahayana Dharma, then Asanga's mother, who went by the name of Sudrin Sammo, was feeling unbearable about the state of the teachings. Was feeling unbearable over the fact that the minor teachings was in such a state of degeneration, and so so she had this great motivation to do something about it, and by herself alone, then she felt that she didn't have the capacity to do anything about the situation. So what she did, she decided to have one whose father was the king, and that became Asanga, and then she had another with a Brahmin, and that became Vasubandhu. And later on, when the two sons were growing up, then in those days, then they followed after the career of their parents, of the father. And so when Asanga asked what his father's job was, then the mother replied saying, I didn't bring you up to follow after the footsteps of your father and live the life of a king. I gave birth to you specifically for the objective of the revival of the teachings of the Buddha, and so therefore I want you to become ordained. And so like that, then she had her sons get ordained and go through the extensive studies of the Dharma, live by the training of live in the practices of the three higher forms of training, and so forth.
tommy kona ngon jawala sabado ane chawa ane gewi zawa jachambo jeba ane tadaya ane chanju sembe gonji yongso sembe ane loje ge tu ane xianle chaba de shuwa wata tende ge charangama ge ane betende yowa insan tene asore rani ane tishi rani ge jang sembe sanwe ne taja godo majuwada semjen xianyang tishi sewe ne to majuwa inza rang tishi sewe sanwe ne tamja la godo chura godo manjuwe ane kasore korangi idam kala ane kasore tenpa de ane jujuchawe wangshuwe kala ane jijin chanpa gomba la tenpa de ane idam tetan dewa yopa de puni jaza tambo de nyewa chene ane jaza ke sumba nashi nyamle chogo nyamba ke ane tu namari yebi tingne ane jiji chaba druba kasa jiji chaba lo chunyi ke bada druba na yinba druba ta dodi machina.
And then to cover briefly the biography of Asanga, then it talks about Asanga's extensive works of virtuous activities in fulfilling the activities of all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas, like that, extraordinary activities of virtue that is accredited to Asanga, primarily because of, his imprints from many previous lifetimes. And so in order to come into the knowledge of all the secrecies of the Tathagatas, the secrecies to which he was not a privilege, and in order to come into the knowledge of all of this, then he undertook the rites of initiation, the Gyurutawa initiation, so forth. And through the course of these initiations, then he tried to find out what was his meditational deity in relation to whom he had the greatest connection. And through the course of this initiation, then he found that it was Maitreya to whom he had the most connection. And so then following that, then he sought Maitreya, specifically sought out Maitreya, and did that for the next 12 years.
탈을 아니 까제 로이 봐도 까제 쥐니 아니 샤마시 발라 아니 탈을 아니 치모마보 메루와 안 부이시바 텐데지라 아니 텐데게가나 아니 치모텔라 아니 동아지 나와텔라 투니지 치모 인지 치모 째니 아니 치모데가 무디 라바가사나니 부시그레스 아니 마사나니 배치모되고 보이나니 누가 빠도면 봐요 거지 아니 제마 좀데 자기 불량이야 뭐야 시기디 가라 아니 자야 단데 아니 치모매 봐자 지진 아니 가차봐 무슨 시와 임바래.
So although he spent 12 years in meditation to seek out Maitreya, then he didn't see he didn't get to see or didn't get to actualize Maitreya, and so after those 12 years, then he left the retreat, and on the way down, then in the town, he came across a dog, a reddish with a dog that the back side of it was completely full of like kind of infected sores that had maggots living in it. And so when Asanga saw the dog, an unbearable compassion, unbearable for the suffering of this dog, that kind of compassion arose in his mind, and then he wanted to remove the maggots from the wound of the dog, but he didn't do it with his hand, because he thought with his hands he'd probably end up killing the maggots. So he decided to lick all the maggots out of the wounds, but as he closed his eyes and stretched out his tongue to lick up the maggots, then the more and more he stretched, then he couldn't get to the dog, and when he opened his eyes, the dog was no longer there, and there was Maitreya.
파바 투제라 충내배 로도 주바인 타다바도 샤마세 와라 투지 충을 시리가나 아니 저라는가 둡디나 저랑기 아니 가려서나 마동바레스 녀마키 마동바레스 마동바레 강가만에 여여바레스네 아니 보통에게 잡아라신지 존재를 페이간래가 미숙한 게 마동와 두스다 나만에 미숙한 게 마동와 근데 제전에 되네 간단하야 아니 처음에 간단하야 편이 아니 간단도 아니 밀롱 아이 저가 지금 밀롱아지 봐도 아니 지지 참발라 최신이 와 최신이 아니 된다대 최근 나네 아니 참제대가 참발라 참비체 대가 세대 아니 원도제 아니 일단 남지 제나바니 줄라마 시가라 원에 가서래 참참비치 땡땡아데 아니 여기 간단한 마세 간단한 사이 초가지가 밀어가지 봐도 최선이 아니 치라고도 자자볼만 나라 치지 깨달라 담마 아니 참제땡한테 만나요 말해.
So when he first saw Maitreya, the dog was no longer there. The first thing he said was, you must have so little compassion for you to not to show yourself for such a long time. That was his first expression. And then Maitreya, so replies saying that that he had been there in his meditation cave from the very beginning. Only that Asanga never got to see him. Asanga never got to see him, but that Maitreya himself was present throughout the very, from the very beginning of his retreat. And so, and to prove the point, then Asanga had Maitreya sit on his shoulders and into the market, and so when he went round to show everyone there was Maitreya, nobody else saw that. And so after that encounter, then Asanga went with Maitreya to Tushita, to Ganden, and spent what was one morning of the Deva time span, but what for human span was like 50 years of human years. But it was just a course of a morning's teachings, which then he received the 5 treatises of Maitreya. You have the 2 alankaras, Sutra Alankara and Visamaya Alankaras, and then you have Uttaratantra, and then you have the other two texts are known as Jenambanim, the 2 texts that differentiate or distinguish. One, distinguishing between the 2 extremes, the middle and the extremes. Uttanamche and China. Distinguishing reality. So you have these 5 texts that he received in the course of a morning's teachings in the time frame of a Deva. When the Buddha taught, Buddha taught teachings that are categorized as interpretive teachings and teachings. So the way this is understood, or the way you categorize what are interpretive and what are definitive is stated in one way in the sutra known as Ludrimisivedo. In the sutra, it's stated. Then and then Tingin Zagyabudo, Samadhiraja Sutra. In that, it talks about another way in which you categorize what is definitive and what is interpretive. And then in the course of the last turning of the wheel of Dharma, within that is another way to what is interpretive and what is definitive. So there is one way to understand what is definitive and what is interpretive. Generally, there's one way to understand that. Then, when we classify a sutra as definitive and a particular sutra as interpretive, there's another way. It's another way.
아니 장대당 어떤 그 제바 칸데르세 그래서나 로드 미세고 또 코란 게 가서 도대 칸다 전동 주었단 바 대단히 아니 의의 텐시자오 도대 칸다 공도 주었단 바 대단히 장외된 시자 도대 간다 사모 따르가와 또가와 땜바 대단히 내위 퇴시차오 찬수인 가라 메사 때문에 도이 가서 가래래서나 도대 간다 아니 가서 전담 주와 땜바스나 전담 주바스나 전담 땜바를 거래 전담 땜바 동반이 세례 직발해요 근데 돈이 전담 주바다 동반이 시바인상 도대 간다 전담 주 단내 내위 퇴시차오 세가라 대 제제 천지 어딘지 체 돈이 된 거에 땡지 做 때문에 또대 어딘지 또 쓰거래 장 좋아 대신도 장된의 군조 담바체 군조 좋아서 장된의 군조 담바체 제제 천지 군조 대체 장 군조 담방에 땡지 做 전에 담바테라 장된지도 쓰거래 인장 장대 로드미세고 땜비 또이 장대 장의제서 든지.
Anyone knows the Sanskrit name for Ludamisvedo? Huh? Lakshayamani Sutra. Lakshayamani Nidesha Sutra. So this particular sutra then, how you distinguish a sutra to be a definitive or a interpretive sutra is that, if the subject matter of the sutra talks about absolute truth, ultimate truth, if the subject matter is that, then it's a definitive sutra. And if the subject matter of a particular sutra happens to be on relative truths, conventional truths, then that sutra is interpretive sutra, and anything that is found and difficult to samotokawa
따르가와 땜바 대단히 내위 퇴시차오.
and anything that which is subject matter is very profound, difficult to realize, then they are all definitive sutras.
로드 미세비 또이 가시 장대당 장대구도당 어딘도 세대당 띵의진 교육과 또이 가수 장대당 도정 경의된 샤이 지발이 동반 대화를 시에 시바다 어딘도 제다시 가사 기회에 최대 단계 장유 전도시 전에 전다 지바 띵의제 가수에 동이 어딘 제제 tenji 돈이 땡지 저거 전대비 태달라 뭐 땡지도 군조 댐바데 장 제자 tenji 장네 병원에 땡지 저거 전에 댐바달라 다대 갈소래 장된지도 세간다 달루주기 우미나가라 장에 쳐야 돼 다디나신 조그와래
And in the second text, the king of the Sutra, Samadhi Raja Sutra, within that also follows after the Ludamisvedo, the same, how you distinguish interpretive and definitive sutras, depending on the subject matter. If the subject matter is on emptiness, explicitly on the absolute truth, then it is definitive sutra, and which is explicitly on the relative truth, conventional, the obscure truths, then are interpretive sutras. So this follows after these two statements. So Nagarjuna follows this point of view.
다들 예신님이가 아니 투다 소속의 장애 체야디 탑두사데 대화래.
In Lekshin Yimpo, and in the essence of eloquent sayings, then all the viewpoint tenets are follows after this kind of same viewpoint of categorizing as interpretive or definitive sutras.
다들이 도미의 장애 체야되라 간디스레스나 다좀내게 돌아 아니 최 탐제 아니랑 그 천이지 좋았던 바기 도치 또 뭐된던 거지 도치 양 수년 탐제 수년 남진 그 바지 최 탐제라는 게 맞주가 된 거게 와 근데 양 콜 되게 나네 수년 남진 그 바지 최대라 아니 양 가세라는 게 천이 주어다 가세라는 게 천이지 뭐 답변아 누리 수년 최탐제라는 게 천이 주어된 게 콜로 탐보 아니 최탐 맞주었던 게 콜로 파바 연진도 쓴다고 다 챙겨낸데라 근데 가르쳐서나 대사공 저기도 또도 공대스 콜로 탐보니 그 공부하기 또도 공대 두시장 그러나
콜로 탐보는 추탄제랑 신이 좀 같이
최 탐보라 최탐제라는 게 천이 주었다지 그러나 아발라수 최탐제라는 게 천이 주었다지 아니 콜로 탐이 가서 아니 최라라는 게 천이지 마주봐 차차차
So, in case of Asanga, then he follows after, category of the viewpoint, which one viewpoint that all phenomena, from form to omniscient mind, then does not exist by way of its own characteristics, and the viewpoint that all phenomena from to exists of its own characteristics. So you have these two viewpoints. In the first Dharma, then everything exists by way of its own characteristics. In the second turning of Dharma, it's like everything, all phenomena exist by way of its own characteristics. And you have the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, which starts making distinctions between what does exist by way of its own characteristics and what does not exist by way of its own characteristics. So Asanga is this point of way.
대이자 대시수라 춘이싱대소 세야데 대화시비 순라다 춘이 신대소 니요아레 세야데 달루주기 어제미세바당 딩을지진 돌아대네 안데 최탐제라는 그 천이지 마주가라 덴바메바 땡기 소직체 드니 지 토메가 간데레서나 토메기 아니 도저 공대라 땡네 아니 좀 된대지 콜로 탐보니라 아니 가소래 콜로 탐비 가는 순에 남진 거 가지 가 콜로 파도 봐도 지랑 그 천이지 투송하대다 콜로 파비지 바까서 그 천이지 마주부 순이 송바대 다 공부 현도 짜네 아니 다른 그 천이 마주바 세가라 시왕기당 용접스나 돈이 그 천이 주바레스 근데 다른 그 천이지 마주에서 차숨도 최대 도매기 도대 공대라 때네 소치거래
샤완다 용접
샤완다 용접랑 그 천이 주하다 근다랑 그 천이지 마주바기 소대 삼삼빌루지 최지다면 조수 실험 대수가 남자 조수고 소대 다 통매기 어디라 때는 소치고 하래다 된다디 참박이 시작박이 또대 젠당 춘 유단 남지 대 참비 흉순보대 삼삼 아니 실험 대수가 나셔 때나 봐봐체 참비 흉기 나네 도대 젠당 가서 유당 원도 제니우데 아니 다 우마벨루지 실험 대수가 나셔 때나 봐봐나 마tuk시 때 소요하네
So for the Tathagatas have stated what the Devashrava, the one gone to bliss, what the Buddha has taught is these two methods, that method in which he has stated that all does not exist by way of characteristics, and that in the course of the second turning of the wheel Dharma, that all phenomena does not exist by way of its own characteristics. The part of Asanga he follows the intention of the sutras, distinguishing what exists by way of its own characteristics and what does not by way of its own characteristics. Asanga distinguishes that. So in accordance with Asanga's viewpoint, then all other powered phenomena, Shenwang, all other powered and thoroughly established phenomena are existent by way of its own characteristics, and impure phenomena does not exist by way of its own characteristics. And so he then sets the basis, path, and result in accordance with this viewpoint. And so you have in Maitreya's 5 texts, 5 treatises. Of these 5 treatises, the first the three, which is Sutra Alankara, the jewel ornament of the sutras, and the 2 sutras that distinguish in the middle and the extreme, and that distinguish Chuen Namje, distinguish between realities. These 3 are the 3 texts that are regarded as Chittamatran texts. Uttaratantra and Abhisamaya Alankara are categorized as, Madhyamika text.
아니 좀 된데 타박에 투지 전부 되기 가르래서나 아니 다 된데 집이나 숨바나시 전이 취지신이 가자와 된진이라 점대주 태안양은 다지 시주면서 저라매 전에 까나와나시 전에 토마 샘점박이 댐박이 취지담에 대한 땐도 미루마기 아니 누자 연료기를 이제 천도니오 되라 아니 코로 담배 가서 취 탐제라는 게 전이 주어래 전에 코랑기 로제도 한팀 봐 땡땡 거래 왜 나라 다려와다 치다고 이게 침을 넣죠 디신산제도 제가 제도서 최단도 기전에 말한줄 이제 팀나는 소원나 신전에 이게 랍디잠바 담보 코란에 이게 어디랍도야 말아봐야 담보니까가 EBC 거라 어떤 신전에 좀 된데기 두자라 최단데 간라야 두지 삼바다 매와다 삼바야 땡고고에 와이자 토마 천도니오 되라 선전빌류지 취지담에라바 대한 미롱 아니 순에 남지 바지 취탐제 가서 취탐제 이 주바레스 대기 권한을 팽거를 가서 다자와 뭐 이게 침을 놓쳐 봐 대신 상제 두자라 치점 최단도서 코랑기서 코랑라 로즈라 가서지 코단대 봐 최단스 지나서 배치는 가지라니 봐 세가 다 죽지가로 콜로 담비 가서 밀리지 치료텐도 좋아야 막아봐 시대야 예샤 전에 맞다네 아니 코란도 텐도 주고 하래 되네야 안 보야 로즈야 튼디자 아니 삼삼 비다와 대변주로 된다라 아니 콜로 타마게 가서 탐자란 게 전이 주와 많이 어떻게 콜라야 나세기 예와 체디 아니 두자 삼삼비 두자 대다를 TV 치도 아니 가르침 템바레에서는 나세 예와 체디 규제를 제와 샤왕을 디랑 바레스 남달라지 미바타두스 남달라지 미바타두스나 동이 된다데 동반이래 오 코니 용주래 코니랑 그 전이 주와레스 아니 다 또배 딱점지 취 아니 군다래 태랑 그 전이지 마주바래 아 코미 가서 두스든 두 거래
The Buddha, in his great skill and great compassion for the sentient beings to be subdued, then taught the Dharma exactly like how the Buddha praised for his teachings, taught everything in praise to dependent arising, then praising the Buddha point of view of dependent arising, and so whatever the Buddha taught in relation to dependent arisings, in accordance with dependent arising or in relation to dependent arising. And so therefore, whatever Dharma he taught, then Buddha taught the Dharma to suit the mind level or the predisposition or the interest of the sentient beings, of the then sentient beings that are to be subdued. And if for the then disciples, then if they had a mindset more appropriated, more suited for the acceptance of a viewpoint of phenomena existing by way of its own characteristics, then he taught he taught from that kind of viewpoint. And so and that is how in dependent Buddha from the point of view of dependent arising. Recognition of the Buddha's great skill in benefiting sentient beings is this reality that whatever he taught in dependent on who he was teaching it to, and just like how it is stated in the jewel garland in Ratnamala that when we first study, we have to begin our studies from the alphabets, before we can sort of, before we can come to be of the capacity to vast amounts of knowledge. Prior to all of that, then we have to begin with the alphabets. In the same way, then, in teaching the Dharma, then the Buddha also taught it in accordance with the mind level and interest of the sentient beings. Never teaching something that was impossible for them to bear or accept like that. And so, so therefore, to some individuals, then he taught that all phenomena, from form to omniscience, everything existed. Everything existed by way of its own characteristics, because that kind of viewpoint is much more beneficial to their mindset. If anything other than this viewpoint will be of no good. Will be of no good. So whatever whatever was taught in accordance with what people were ready or able to accept, and so therefore then later on then even for the Chittama, then there was still the point of the external existence. As individuals progress from that stage, then you have a distinguishment of what does exist by way of its own characteristics, and what constitutes as not existing by way of characteristics for the Chittamatrans. Then you have other powered phenomena, everything which is brought on by causes and conditions, those exist by way of its own characteristics. Whereas the thoroughly established phenomena, that which is talking about emptiness, then for Chittamatrans, then they also exist by way of its own characteristics. But everything which is labeled by the mind, imputed by our concept, then those do not exist by way of its own characteristics.
Oh yeah, that didn't that do just Lord Rabla, and that Tashu and Nashi, Lord Jimmy Sepatam Batang, and oh, things that you don't Shepa Nashi, Chenny, Tomane, and the Samoton Banid, Mudunji, Kasore, Yajatunji, Mudendang, Tandema, Dan Chenny, and then do just Raptella, can do some good to Chataw. Roa, or do Shaguari, 규타대바숨 고로 담비치도 자위 되자 첸도 참미치도 자위 되자 샘잠바 바비치도 자위 되자라 아니 오마와 자니 되자 규타대베 완도 자니 고로숨 순거야 말.
So for those of the best of the mental capacities, for those of the the best of the minds, then right way, Buddha taught on the profound emptiness in accordance with the Samadhi Sutra and Ludamissa, just like how it is categorized. How those texts categorize definitive and interpretive sutras, then taught right away, straightforward on emptiness. So therefore, then you have, in accordance with beings to be subdued, that in accordance with the three types of sentient beings to be subdued, then you have the first, second, and the third turning of the wheel of Dharma. In the first, for the you have the first turning of the wheel of Dharma who follow after, whose point are that of the Uttaratantricans and Vaibhashikans. You have the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, and then you have the and then you have the second turning of the wheel of Dharma for the for the Madhyamikans, and then the last turning of the wheel of Dharma for the Chittamatrans, like that.
Oh yeah, you just get to the one to check. That and that the Chamjogi Nana Dodejan, then Abani sent of a Tawala Patani. Insani, Tangondo Yangi, Danger Carriers and Atoni to the Tower 10 or the so the and Jan Sunji, Momba Tobaki, Lamji Rambaki, Lamji Mo, Lamji Tangi, Langi Kurim, what's the so on the Jangi Dambar.
So in these 5 treatises Maitreya, then you have Sutra, the Uttaratantra, the two texts that distinguish between the middle and the extreme, and between the real, as categorized as Chittamatran texts. And then you have the Uttaratantra and Abhisamaya Alankara categorized as minor texts. And within the Abhisamaya Alankara, then, although it talks about the method for realizing emptiness, then you also have within it the setting up of the path, setting forth the path for the of these 3 lineages of these 3, what are the nature of the path, or what are the number of the paths, the classifications of the path, and the sequence of the path. Sequences of these paths are all set forth in the Abhisamaya Alankara, for the individuals of these three types.
And the tattoo tiba chitumawa chiba yimbala, Tommy gay and the tattoo tiba sum to truby gomba. Touching the so chair day, Samson will teaching the so chair mato, little Rani, Tommy Rani, and the tattoo tiba.
So both Nagarjuna and Asanga ultimately then talk about there being one vehicle. Ultimately, then there is only one vehicle, but in charioting or propagating, then a path. Then you can say that Asanga, invested everything in propagating the Chittamatram vehicle.
Oh yeah, 다 잠바그 최시디. 다 가서 봐와 하는 줄라미 땡주 세리기다. 되라 가소래. 다 천주된 대용으로 왔다는 가소래. 천주된 교지차 흉대세. 땡주 코란라 최저면 아닌바래. 땡주의 슈도 최정원도 안에 잠재시한라 최저요 하는마도 안에 다들 천주된당 교자대 아니 로자와 그 하다마도 땡주 코란라 교자 매인바래. 땡주 이제 최소한다 chanju도 연대상제 틀렸다만이 세들 맞추어만도 주세요. 다 로자 거 하면도 인자 다 되라. 그와 천주된당 교지타 흉구된이 비슷가 다 천라 자가가도 좋아. 자가께도 마야나 안도 따라 수들아 야자 세대 대체.
So with regards to the Uttaratantra, then the text with the meaning of the title and the homage paid by the translator. So the meaning of the title and the homage of the translator is not in the original text, but it's the translator's edition. And then you have the meaning of the general the main text, the meaning of the main text. So so the meaning, you begin with the meaning of the title, which is the original title, happens to be in Sanskrit. Okay, Chiksunandati Mayana.
Oh yeah. Then you get to Yana and Tudira Shata Sira. That you gonna Jamashiva Peketu Casoli. 첨부시와라 마샤 벽에도 사보야나니 티바 안누따라니 라마 아니 규당 샤자니 땡제스.
So the Sanskrit title is Mahayana Uttaratantra Shastra. So Mahayana is Maya has the great, Yana is the vehicle. Uttaram is sublime continuum. Uttaratantra is.
Oh, that 가서는 티반디 드버를 쳐봐, 귀 티바당, 늘 드버를 쳐봐, 저희 티. 세대 간지라서 그래서나 전육 쿠도 쳐와라 티바스 거래. 다지당, 그봐. 전육 티바 첨부 세대.
When we talk about a Mahayana vehicle, the connotation of a vehicle is something that carries that load, a vehicle that carries the load. The load here carried is the carrying the load of the two objectives. The perfect objective for the self, the ultimate objective for the self, and the ultimate objective for the others. Bearing the responsibility of these two goals is the vehicle that is being referred to as vehicle.
다음 첨부서와데 아니 윤단된밤 첨부 주단된밤나 첨부 사티바 첨부 그게돼.
첨부 윤단된밤 첨부
주단된밤 윤단된밤나 첨부 미바쳐와라서 뛴지와래.
So when we talk about Maha, the greatness can be referred to 7 times, great in these 7 types of ways, or great in these 6 types of ways.
아니 가서는 귀 세대 귀 잡아라 쓰고래 귀 들어와.
The continuum. The continuum referring to the, basically the continuity.
그래서나 네 가서 아니 팀마다 제비 셈 정체 땡거와 인장 아니 셈 거랑 아니 유차바 그중아지 파송나 섬지 있잖아요. 아니 유차바라 봐. 요즘 밤마째 되고 와. 아니 유차바 인자디 정말 섬그 아니 정말 정신세고에 인당 리스 차차네다고.
So the continuum here being referred to is our mind's continuum, the unbroken continuity or the continuum of our mind. The uninterrupted there is there is no such a or a later mind like that. It's just one continuum, and because this text talks about antidotes to getting rid of the defilements of our mind, so the subject matter of this text is basically the ways in which to get rid of the defilements of the mind. And so you have this title, continuum, referring to the continuum of our mind.
아니 세자 세와데 단juk 니몬드나 말이 쳐와다 니몬베달레 말 니몬베다 말이발에 쳐와다 만주다 코에 등하라 껴버 쳐봐 인장 아니 단juk 게 니몬드나 만주실에 쳐줍지 안데 니단 담바 인장 단주스
and the lama di khwashan
lama chimalaya 그래서 주침이 치마가 메랑 라마세데 치미트 마마다 치마세 저러 치미트 이렇게
okay. And so when we talk about the sublime continuum, the sublime refers to that, okay. And then the Shastra, the term Shastra, then how to understand that is most the Shastras are explanations that enable us to get out of lower realms, get out of cyclic existence, to come the enemy of our afflicted states of our minds. So the Shastras, when we talk about explanation, the Shastras has that connotation of showing us the way out of samsara and lower realms and combating our delusions.
Oh yeah, that. That's
the meaning of the. The homage of the translator is, I bow down, I prostrate to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
Oh, they Lozawan Namji, and they never got tattoo could turn the lot of Drubatang. And it danger day, and the carrot, Dodi didn't to Dobicito. Or Dodi didn't to Dobicito, and it Sanjay Chadu Sambatamjala, Chasa, Sigore.
So these kind of homage prostrations offered by the translator is to have the is our prayer, so that they may easily accomplish both temporary and objectives of such an undertaking. And the reason why the homage is directed to the Buddhas is because this text is to enable in us the understanding of the vast collection of the sutras, the knowledge of the vast collection of the sutras, and because this is the knowledge that seeking, so that is sought, so the prostrations are directed to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
Maybe then you could Jadela and it is in Jabeja. Do you then you do you then you could Tamja Chamber? 너도 되는 그 주자들라 아니 산지를 찾으셔 봐. 고난 가르를 준자래래 요. 원비 되는지 그 저자 가르된 거 말해서나 셔럽지 나와 주지做我전에 된거 말해. 셔럽기 나와 주지 做我전에 된 바에서 파반 잠바에 셔럽지 사인 바에 원비 되는 그 주자들라 아니 주지 잠바에 하고.
So you have what is the three pitakas or the three baskets of the teachings, the three vast collection of teachings, in the Abhidhamma collection, the Vinaya collection, and the Sutra collection. And so, in Abhidhamma, in manifest knowledge, then because the knowledge of this text is a form of higher training in wisdom, so the homage is often, when this text is of this category, then the homage is directed to Manjushri, who personifies, the embodiment of all Buddha's wisdom, because knowledge of the manifest knowledge, Abhidhamma, then is enabling in us higher training in wisdom. And then, when a text is attributed to the Vinaya connection, then the homage is directed to the omniscient one, to the Buddha. And then when the text is of the category of the sutras, then the homage is directed to the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
Oh yeah. That didn't know Sanja Boko Ding Sanja the Chanju Sembo, Tujulang Masa, the Sanja Chanju Sembujulang Mawa, in that tongue Ding Dabo Yinza, Tiukoeto. That did she catch up with them. I need to do it, the Nigula, do it, and it's ever some Dabo, the Tamja Chamber Yinza. So
why do we have homage to the Buddha, prostrations to the Buddha at the beginning of all Vinaya texts? Is because who is the Lord of all the rules and discipline? Is the Buddha. Is the one. It is the Buddha who has set forth all the rules of the discipline, and so accordingly, then. The homage is directed to the Buddha. And as for the sutra, why all sutra text has its homage directed to all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas is because Buddhas and Bodhisattvas are endowed with the quality of concentration. They rule the realm of concentration, kind of like that. And so so therefore, our knowledge of the sutras is what is in us training in higher concentration. And who are those who are best at higher concentration are all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. And so therefore, all sutra texts then has this homage directed to Buddhas and Bodhisattvas.
아니 류나바 샤바당 야라 개와 샤바스도아 류나바 샤바사 류세디 리 류데 그거 아래서 야라 투마초바 류중오 생아주디 지당 그 류스가 마 야라 투마초바 류중오 야라 투마초바 인자 류샤바 류샤바스 다 야라 개와 샤你原来叫我写吧是的，俺那这是可能中学原来给了三下个对写的了，原来叫我写吧是的，原来你咱的对驴那把写吧得了，俺那看的人是那几档，都是我得我说还挺白的，是吧？上节确实看不到讲究的，原天上节出来的嘛，出来的，但就归你论年多对呢，多就一年那就等到过是干了上节。아니 담배 초세와디 군도 군조 약속돼 제 상제 최소 감데 다들 뭐 되는거만 감세가 감대와 시비 님보 저 감당 창조 세계가 방도의 창조 아니 산재의 틀에 세계가 더 마셔야 되라 어디 또 두시고 하래 네
And so, and just like the, excuse me. So, just like our body, you know, which is made of many parts, the body and its parts. So, in the same way, in explaining the meaning of the text, then you have. It is the explanation is following explaining the the body and the parts like that. In the same way, then you have the main points, which is basically presenting what are known as the 7 Vajra points, and then go details of each one of these points. So the 7 Vajra points, it refers to the Vajra point of the.
산재 세가 배절 요한나 신이체네 아니 빵바당 20피 세나 빵바 세나 등이 말리바 빵바 영벌 시지주바 빵바 오니구데체 아니 이시 세나나 바탑지 준비 이시데 이시테체 최주구 산재고 최주구데체 이러와 다 산재 그 구대라 최고다 수군이 예배나네 군조바 안에 산재지 수지 구대 어 산재 최 산재 세가라 산재 그 최고당 수군이 어디에 된 거래
The first Vajra point is the Vajra excuse me the Vajra point of the 3 jewels, beginning with the Buddha. So what the Buddha says is the signifying the perfection of all abandonment of all defilements, the obscuration of afflictions, the obscuration to omniscience, the knowledge obscuration, and then having that exalted wisdom, transcendental wisdom of the omniscient mind. So that Vajra point of the Buddha then it refers to the Dhammakaya and the Rupakaya, the truth body and the form body. The form body is the conventional truth.
Oh yeah, 최고대 된다면 고체 군조바에 안내 가 수고대 군조비 산재 없어 군조비 고체 와 군조체 대이가 산재 이바체 와
최고대 된다면 고체
수고대 군조비
So you the truth body, the Dhammakaya is the ultimate body, and Rupakaya, the form body, is the conventional body. Both of the two are Buddha.
아니 지리바다 차자 과된테당 텐더위 차자의 토바의 체백이 년보 남지 된바니오데 담비 쳐구조체 와 군조라 아니 수럽지 초 대군조위 쳐군조 수럽지 초대 쳐군조 원에 많이 받체
So and as for the rare and sublime Dharma, as in Dharma refuge, then the ultimate Dharma refuge is the cessation of everything that needs to be rid of, that needs to be abandoned, that has been abandoned. Cessation that which is attained by an Arya Mahayana being. An Arya Mahayana being's attainment of such a cessation of having totally removed and abandoned everything that which has been abandoned through employing a path that has all of this possible, the true path that has made all possible. That is the ultimate Dhamma refuge. The true path and true cessation that are the attainments in the case of an Arya Mahayana being. That is the ultimate Dhamma refuge. And then you can say the conventional Dhamma refuge are the scriptures, are textbooks that contain all this information of the Dhamma. So these scriptures, they are not the actual Dhamma refuge. So they're like the relative ones.
다트니 군두군조들라 된다고 군두군조다 군조비 군두군조 이해체가나 다양 군두군조들라 된다고 군두군조데 티전 파비 주지 르바다 좋아 스르바스나 돈용무슨 도비 이시 남데리 샤초거래 좋아스나 고대리 샤초거래 어때 된다고 군두군조 이장야 군두군조를 말했대 와 군조비 군두군조들라 까지 티전 파바 대 군조비 군두군조 원해체
Rigdan chowa dila khash. Toni ngoso.
Toni to be chiche. Chowa interesa. Niemo ba chiti ba chirile chowa.
So and then for the sangha, the rare and sublime sangha refuge, then that also you have the absolute one and the conventional one. The absolute one, the absolute rare and sublime sangha refuge would be the knowledge and deliverance that which is attained by an Arya Mahayana being. Knowledge here refers to the knowledge of directly realizing emptiness, which in fact is the true path, and the liberation, the deliverance or the liberation refers to the cessation that the individual has attained, the cessation of the obscurations and all of that, the cessation of the two types of obscurations. So, that is the actual ultimate, sangha object of refuge, sublime sangha refuge. The conventional one you can say is a Mahayana Arya being. But Mahayana Arya being is an actual sangha refuge.
감대라 된다며 감다 군조에 감이 지리가나 다 된다며 감대라 아니 sem지 sem랑 신지 추에 동바 세디 다 처마다 집이 sem지 천이디 말이 와 처마다 장아란지 주지 이지 남시 이띵기 천이디 요 어디 감 세디 간디지라 고고 알아서 감 생각인데 르라 감을 고고 르라 봉나 지구日记 풍보 제제 감남 인 저거 나라 됐습니다. 저거 나라 풍보 세야 돼. 아니 양아 두마 보면 두 나서 봉바라 봉바. 제위 고주와나 제세 르인바나 감전에 봉나 지구日记 풍보 제제 감남 인 전에 송아나신 단단 네 값이 감세야 돼. 르라. 와 고고야 이 말이. 와 된다와 대랑 신내리 세대 다를 자고 와래.
망다춘 가사갈 배우도 긴게 망다춘 망다춘. So and then the next point, the third or fourth watcher point, is the element. The element here refers also again the element can be distinguished between that which is the ultimate and that which is the conventional. And tanda semgi ran karsa semgi ran sing
sem지 독생 다 돈이 들었어. 그만에 집이 sem지 춘이. 대 단다대 감.
semgi ran shin tartude tandam besam tandam마다 군소가 직송송
어디디 군조 제단 영주체. 단다 장 대라 감대라 에스 단다be 감지다 군조가 감지기. 와. 다 군조가 감대 근데에서나 sem랑 sem진내로 sem랑시지 처마 맞주바다.
So what is the conventional element as a is the mind that does not exist by way of its own nature, or it refer the mind that which does not exist by way of its own nature. That is the conventional one. Also, you can say, the mind that which is with defilement. A mind that which is with defilement is a conventional one. And just to make it clear, because the element also refers to the Buddha nature itself. Buddha nature itself, the Tathagata Garbha, the Buddha nature itself.
인상 코 큰다 릭세데 가르에서나 장신내리 세차고하르디와 장신내리 세차고가 인자 장신내리서 간데에서나 말한도 샘쟁의 주지 춘이 로아 정말랑 그때 코 다야르마 신도 단다 지제의 이데 아 타니 타르 처마 꾸낭 에비 아니 상제 그주 천지 어디야 그런 거
The Buddha nature here refers to the natural abiding nature in us, this reality that is there within us, which presently with all the defilements, and which gradually, as an individual gets rid of defilements successively, then there comes a time when this Buddha nature with defilements comes totally free, comes to be totally purified of all the defilements, and becomes totally transformed into that enlightened state.
식대체 감대체 다 군주 말한지 주기 샘딘도라 샘딘도 아니 연구그 삼에 샘치 사변시 산제기 꾸주run기 네와치가 말해 라 샘제 탐제기 띵도 이진남시 그 띵나 아니다 삼에 샘치 사변시를 가나 아니 산제기 꾸주run기 네와시 대뒤제 뭐 르데 다준데 돈이도 남지 채바 주사기 시 심지 사변 조아레테 군조비 안에 감대.
So this naturally abiding Buddha nature in us, Chunyi, this ultimate reality is what you can say is the ultimate Buddha nature. And then the conventional one you can also say is this uncontaminated mind, which potential within our mind to become, the potential within our mind to transform and to develop. So that is that is the conventional Buddha nature. When we talk about this seed, the seed of this uncontaminated mind, is this within our mind to generate all the supramundane qualities in us. When it's applied on this seed, then it can grow into this kind of supramundane quality.
아니 이지 남식이 땡기 삼회 셈기 사변되라 지대는 대위 최제적인 니와디샤 지대는 대위 최제적인 니와테 퇴속이 마다 공라 라시네리체 그래서 답사나 아니 연주 그래
됐어.
퇴와라서 하기 좋아 니와디 와체 퇴속에서 마다 왜 가나 아니 꼭 네비리 퇴속에서 답사나 춘이 루스 됨메데기 라 삼자마도 어머니라.
So what was is with regards to naturally abiding Buddha nature and the developing Buddha nature in us. This is how it actually is. But according to Chittamatra viewpoint, again, it's a little bit different. In accordance with the Chittamatra viewpoint, then both of these two Buddha nature, naturally abiding Buddha nature and the developing Buddha nature, is on the basis of our mental consciousness, and that when the application of the path are applied, through oneself having heard the teaching and explanations, then when you apply the end path on the naturally abiding, then this becomes the divine Buddha nature. That is how they explain it off.
Oh yeah.
Chita konsu semsa rashine da gengu re kebade
ko jukorang same semji sabe dija kora yibache hola 퇴소 지세 마담나 체 퇴소 그세 땀네 고 gengu 그래 두고.
In other words, then, according to the Chittamatra viewpoint, then naturally abiding Buddha nature and the developing Buddha nature, both what constitutes the mind, and that only when the applications of the path are applied on the naturally abiding Buddha nature, developing Buddha nature.
그런 엄만 매번에 찍네 사매도 받지마 찍네 찍대 용와 아니 내사디 주바 이지 계절에 땜바 하서리 이지 남셔라 땜바 토베디 고님보다 그들을 그 남들 배속이 토와 많이 봐 토와 전이 제주숨 된 지송고 아래
개바
숨 통마 매번에 찍네 찍대
semgi sab
근데 찍대 용와체 그래서
댄스 이기는
어이 주바이 계절 주바이 계절나나 그 토베에 대한 아니 천이기도 천이기도
There are three sort of characteristics that Chittamatrans with regards to seed of this uncontaminated mind. It says one characteristic is that it has since beginningless lifetime uninterrupted from beginningless lifetime up until now, like that. And what it upon is that it is dependent on a mental consciousness, and then how this is, how it actualizes its potential not through effort but through just reality, through the power of reality. So if anything's not clear, you just write down, so we have the option. in the seven machunda in the what did you ask
아니 고난도야고
do that? Okay.
야야스 베게 조심도 장리 엠바지 산제신도 도근 남다신 라지바 오이다 고로라나 아야미 임보제 마제 바나제 바냠바메 바이 아쇼